Hi, I'm Jayla, and I work for the Tacoma Tree Foundation as the planting coordinator.
My name's Lisa. I am the Community Trees Program Coordinator for the City of Tacoma.
You want to plant a tree, and that's great. We're here to teach you how.
It's a process, so you're going to have to think it through. Why do you want to plant a tree? Is it for shade? Is it for noise reduction? Are you creating a wind buffer? All these answers will help you decide where to plant your tree. And also, what tree you want to plant.
First, you're going to call 811 to figure out where your utilities are. Then they're going to come within 2 to 3 days to mark your underground utilities.
Once your utilities are marked, there's a couple more placement standards to be aware of.
There's a variety of tools you're going to need to plant your tree. We're going to list them in the description below.
If you get a tree through the Community Tree Program, we'll provide tree stakes, tree ties, and watering bags. All right, the next thing is to prepare your tree for planting, which includes preparing its roots. You're gonna wanna take it out of its container or root control bag and do any necessary root pruning to get you started. All right, it's time to take your tree out of its pot.
Identify the root flare. The root flare is where the trunk of the tree meets the root structure.
So you're gonna want to dig a little bit and expose the root flare. You're looking for a significant root structure, not a tiny root, but one of the first significant root structures. The root flare is important to identify because that's the point where that's gonna be level with the ground. This part of the tree is really important to not bury because this is where the tree does some of its breathing and nutrient exchange. And burying it will actually deprive your tree of oxygen and can choke it out. The next step is to loosen up some of these roots and tease some of the soil out. You want to address any circling or girdling roots that you see. This tree looks pretty good, but there are some trees you're gonna get that might have a more dense root system, and so you'll actually want to prune or root prune those circling roots, so just cut them off.
This is the tree's signal that it's no longer in a pot and it's ready to grow in the ground. You don't need to get all of the soil off of the roots, just get these roots flowing.
As you're going through this process, be careful not to damage that root flare up top or nick the taproot on the bottom. Don't forget to take any tags or stakes off your tree before planting it in the ground.
To figure out how big you're gonna dig your hole, we're measuring the depth of the root ball with our shovel.
To figure out the width of the hole, you'll want to make the width twice as big as the root ball. You could use the pot that it came in as a reference. Now that we're ready to dig our hole, you want to mark kind of the outline and excavate the outline of that hole. Remember, you're aiming for twice the width of the root ball and whatever depth that you measured earlier. Once you kind of outline that hole, you want to remove any of the grass layer on the top as a starting point.
As we're digging, we're putting the sod and the grass in another pile, and we're moving the soil to the tarp because we're gonna put it back in the hole when we're done planting the tree.
All right, now it's time to measure the hole. You're gonna wanna take your rake, lay it across, put the shovel in the center of the hole, and you're gonna measure the point where the rake meets the shovel. You're aiming for what you measured earlier, and this is the point where the root flare should be level with the ground.
If you're unsure, it's always better to keep the root flare higher.
All right, it's time to put your tree in the hole.
Now it's time to fill in the hole. If you choose to amend the soil, now's the time to mix it in. As you're filling the hole, one person can hold the tree so it stays upright.
Now it's time to stake your tree. Not all trees need to be staked. If your tree can help it, it's actually better to not stake your tree. But if you're in a high traffic area or a really windy area, it's okay to ask for that little bit of support. So it's okay to stake your tree if it needs it. To stake it, you're gonna wanna put the stakes parallel from one another, and you wanna stay 1.5 to 2 feet from the trunk. So right about this distance. Then you'll want to drive the stake at least 1 to 2 feet into the ground. If the ground is soft, you can twist it into the ground, or you could use a tool called a post driver to drive it into the ground.
If you're using a post pounder, make sure to not lift it over your head.
So now it's time to tie your tree to the stake. The material you will kind of want to use, there's plastic tree ties. There's also like nylon tree ties. You just want to make sure you're not using rope or wire, something that's going to rub and damage the bark. So something soft and flexible. You're going to want to find the point of the trunk where the tree stays upright when you hold it. It's better to go lower than higher, and you want to avoid tying main branches of the trunk.
Now we're gonna place mulch all the way around the tree in a wide circle.
Make sure none of the mulch is touching the trunk of the tree. So the first couple inches away from the tree, there should be no mulch. Kind of like a donut. You're gonna wanna water your tree for the first 3 dry seasons. That's April through the end of September.
You can use a 5-gallon bucket 2 to 3 times a week, or a watering bag.
You just planted a tree.
Thanks for watching. Now head to our tree care playlist for more tree care tips.